I pass out. When I wake up, I think I've done terrible things.
What is it you think you've done?
Twisted is a story of a young female inspector recently promoted to homicide in the San Francisco police force. While investigating her first case, discovers that all of the victims are men who she has slept with.
We receive somewhere between 50 and 100 scripts a week. One of my executives said, "We have one. You better stop what you're doing and read it." I read it, and we concurred that this was a winner.
It looks to be at first the classic movie setup of woman in danger, but it turns out to be a lot more interesting than that.
What is this?
It's my gun. Gun.
I love the idea that Twisted was a psychological thriller. It wasn't just two buddies going after somebody. This was a case unfolding, a psychological case, and as we proceed deeper and deeper into the story,
Do you live around here?
the more complex does the plot become.
There's been another murder. And I'm my best suspect.
The minute I heard it was Ashley Judd, I was interested. I'd seen thriller films that she'd been involved with, but this I felt was a complete departure from those films. She wasn't really the victim. She was tough, a tough lady, and having to operate not only psychologically in a tough way, but physically in a tough way.
Jessica is pretty tough, but that's not the only note. And I had to learn that because when I read it, I really had this idea that it was someone who was tough. And all of a sudden I had to really pause and back up and find that there was this incredibly well-rounded and fully expressive person without one trait overwhelming the other, such as toughness eclipsing her vulnerability.
It also had a kind of a sexuality to it that I felt her other work lacked. And knowing Ashley, that I think is her strength. She's a very sexy woman.
The movie is challenging our preconceived ideas about gender allowances. The conduct that's typically ascribed to men and women is merged.
I think here was a storyline that I felt with the perfect actress to play that line. I wanted all of our main characters to have a really human quality, which I think is the most fertile ground for an authentic paranoid situation where you're trying to have a mystery and disguise who it might be, who might be the villain. And each of these characters could divert you from suspicion and yet drop some clues where you'd think they might be the killer.
I've learned a lot about the police world and what a genuinely tight-knit community it is. The gentleman who is the police advisor on our movie, when we first met, the first thing he wanted to talk about was partners. Partnership is a defining characteristic. Sam was my father's partner, and he took me in. It was like no second guessing that. It was partner's daughter, done deal. So he's my Uncle John, and he's taught me everything I know. I followed in his footsteps, become a cop just like he is.
He was this father figure to her that had taken her in when her mom was murdered and father committed suicide and raised her up to be a cop. The sense of pride he feels at her accomplishments, and then the level of disgust that comes out when he figures out her lifestyle choices. And to work with that balancing act was really great.
I'm just glad you made it through.
What do you say about Sam? He has brought a dimension to the film that was never in the original screenplay. He makes it come alive.
Back up, boys. You're breathing my air.
Andy Garcia plays her partner. He's protective, he's a little chauvinistic, and they have this little headbutting.
How could you? How could you do that to me?
And it makes for an interesting dynamic, and we hope that they're going to end up together at the end of the movie.
My character is not the protagonist in the film. My character has a specific function, and that's what you have to come to the table with. How do you best function in the story, and what kind of raw material can you provide to Phil Kaufman, the director, that can later on, as he's piecing together this sleight of hand type of thriller, to give him as many options as possible with your character.
Noir often deals with twisted psychological states. The very theme that attracted me to the film was that she comes to believe she could have done the killings. At the beginning, you just feel the glow of her character, and then as the film progresses, you see that glow diminish and even turn into worry and self-doubt. If it could be validated psychologically, I thought we could make her downward spiral work.
There are times where she does have blackouts. Maybe she's passed out from drinking too much wine. She may be too tired. Her condition gets worse and worse. She becomes a little more haggard. She seems to have more problems sleeping. She's drinking a little bit more. Blackouts come in, many different forms. Some of them can come just as you're in denial of what happened. It's an odd mechanism that the brain does to sort of protect the consciousness.
Obviously, noir is thought of as black and white. If you start doing this type of film in color, there's certain types of lighting that you do. Peter Deming is, I think, a rising superstar, the cinematographer. He did David Lynch's Mulholland Drive and, shot many wonderful films. Peter decided to use this ACE process, which makes the blacks blacker. It's a little something you do in shooting and then, in the lab have to do certain things, printing. It was really important as we got to that point in the movie where she really feels, she says to David Strathairn, the shrink, am I going mad? All of that needed a very subtle build, and it comes with choosing the shots, the type of lighting, and of course it comes with Ashley Judd being able to act that.
When we brought Phil onto the project, there was a clamor for people to work with him. He hardly takes any material. He makes very few movies, and I'm so privileged, and I feel we're so lucky to be able to work with him.
I felt like, I could really trust him. He could take material that in a lesser director's hands might be just, a thriller, whereas this to me is a mystery and a puzzle.
Put the gun down.
Go away.
I hope this movie is complex enough, and yet in the construction of it, it's an entertainment. What's next? What am I following here?
Phil was actually able to put in all those little things, little twists.
Crime remains the same, only the suspects change.
The dead-end streets that make you, backtrack and go back. Oh, I thought, okay, and go back.
Do you have any physical evidence on her? Anything to indicate that she killed these men?
No, of course not.
Didn't think so.
Maybe he's the guy, maybe he's the guy. So even reading the script, you're kind of like, wait a second.
It's a genre that's very tricky editorially. You think you design one movie, and then all of a sudden you're in the editing room and the movie begins to define itself a different way.
I can tell you it surprised me. You always think at any given moment, you know what's going on, you know who is creating all of this chaos. You think you know, and as the movie goes on, it takes you on a little journey, and you don't know anything.
We as filmmakers are planting evidence for the audience to follow, whether it's a cigarette burn, whether it's a Yawara, whether it's a cigarette itself, telephones, voices, sounds, clicking sounds. There's a lot that's being shuffled in here. It's a little bit of a crossword puzzle. It's a game for people to play, and I feel the best murder mysteries are games. Come enjoy the game with us. The title alone excites me. It has maybe something to do with the convolutions of the plot, has something to do with the road that's twisted that they all go down within the movie, and it has something to do with perhaps their motivations. It gives the audience a chance to perhaps untwist what we've twisted.